Every single day, 17 people in the United States die waiting for an organ transplant. 17 people. That's over 6,000 lives lost every year. And not because we don't have the technology or resources to save them, but because there simply aren't enough organs to go around. Right now, there are more than 100,000 people sitting on transplant waiting lists in the US alone, hoping and praying that they'll get that life saving phone call before it's too late. And for many, that call never comes. What if there was a solution that could eliminate this waiting list, save thousands of lives, and even make healthcare far more affordable? It's controversial, sure. You might even call it radical. But I believe the solution is simple. People should be allowed to sell their own organs. Stick with me until the end because this might surprise you. Right now, across the globe, millions of people are waiting for organ transplants that might never come. In the US, the average waiting time for a kidney transplant is 5 years on average, and many wait for longer than that. In India, the demand for kidneys is so high that only 3% of patients actually ever receive a transplant. This is a scary low number. And then you have countries like Japan, where negative cultural beliefs about organ donation cause the waiting lists to be even longer. In the United Kingdom, more than 7,500 people are currently waiting for a transplant, and about 400 die each year because they didn't get one in time. And that's not even touching the informal, untracked cases in developing nations where people often have no access to waiting lists at all. The common thread here is that nearly every country relies on systems of altruistic donation, which is where people voluntarily give up their organs after they die, or in rare cases, while they're still alive. And while the intention is noble and makes us all feel nice about it, let's be honest, it's just not nearly enough. How often do people voluntarily sign up to be organ donors? Not very often. And even when people do want to donate, logistical hurdles like timely organ retrieval and matching donors with recipients means that many organs go to waste. Even in a country often praised for having the highest organ donation rates in the world, like Spain, there still aren't nearly enough organs. Even there, with an opt out system where everyone is presumed a donor unless they explicitly say otherwise, there is still not enough organs to meet demand. And that policy by itself is incredibly problematic, as it basically means that you do not own your own body. But that's a topic for a whole other day. The harsh reality is that altruism alone can never meet the demand. There are just too many people in need and too few willing to give because of the nature of the problems we are facing. There are very little people that wish to give an organ of their own body to a stranger purely out of the goodness of their own heart. And it seems like no matter what we do, we can't solve this fundamental problem. The supply is too small. So, what's the solution? It's simple economics. When demand vastly outstrips supply, the only way to bridge the gap is to create a market for the good in question. I mean, the market would already be there had it not been outlawed by government intervention. The problem with the current system is simple: there are no incentives. In any market where demand outstrips supply, prices rise, creating an incentive for more people to enter the market. Right now, the organ shortage exists because there's no incentive for donors, just altruism, which, as we've seen, isn't enough to meet the global demand. But in a market system, this changes completely. If people could sell their organs legally, the financial incentive would mean more organs, and this would completely eliminate organ shortages. Completely. When you have a free market for any good and the demand far outstrips the supply, prices of organs would increase and thus encourage more people to sell theirs. Prices would rise along with quality of organs available until they meet demand. And then there would be no shortage. Someone struggling financially might see this as a way to improve their circumstances while saving another person's life. Similarly, families of deceased individuals could choose to sell their loved ones' organs, using the funds to cover medical bills or funeral costs. The beauty of a free market is that it aligns human needs with human incentives, and that's the best part. All of these transactions would be 100% voluntary, and countless lives could be saved. We even have examples of this working not just in theory, but in practice. Iran is the only country in the world that has fully legalized the sale of kidneys, and the results speak for themselves. Iran has eliminated its kidney transplant waiting list entirely, and there is no shortage of kidneys whatsoever. Here's how their system works. A person who needs a kidney pays the equivalent of around $4,000 to $5,000, which goes directly to the donor. In some cases, charitable organizations step in to cover the cost for those who can't afford it. For donors, this money can be life changing, as is often enough to pay off debts, fund education, or improve their living standards significantly. It's basically around 6 months worth of income in Iran, which would be around $22,500 in the US at the same rate. To compare this to the black market rate in the United States, the black market rate for a kidney can be as high as $160,000. And it is that high because of the risk associated with illegal organ trade, both for the donors and the receivers. In Iran, we can see the free market principles working in action. Even though the market isn't exactly or even close to free in Iran, it is infinitely better than no market at all. Some people value the kidneys less than the amount of money they might receive by donating it, and the one receiving the kidney obviously values it more than his money, so both parties benefit. One of the most surprising benefits of a free market for organs might be its potential to lower healthcare costs as a whole, not just for those needing transplants. In the current system, organ shortages force hospitals to spend significant resources locating and procuring organs, often through complicated allocation systems. These costs are often invisible, but they get passed down to patients in the form of higher medical bills. A free market would eliminate this bottleneck. If organs could be bought and sold openly, hospitals wouldn't need to pour money into locating donors through long waiting lists or complex registries. Instead, they could purchase organs directly from willing sellers, saving time and reducing logistical expenses. And then there's the impact of increased supply. When more organs are available, transplant procedures become more common, and common procedures are cheaper. Think of it like any other medical innovation, the first time a new surgery is performed, it's expensive. But as it becomes routine, costs drop dramatically, both because more doctors get better faster at said surgery, but also as the entire medical field improves upon it. Plus, the reduced waiting times mean fewer patients are stuck on costly dialysis machines or taking expensive medications while waiting for a transplant. In the US, for example, the average cost of dialysis is over $90,000 per year per patient. And when you factor in that it takes an average of 5 years waiting for a kidney, buying one, even if the price was as high as $100,000, could be way cheaper than staying on dialysis for years for the low price of $450,000. And here's another great benefit: the people who are better off the most aren't just those receiving the transplants. Lower healthcare costs translate across the entire system, leading to cheaper insurance premiums, reduced financial strain on hospitals, and better outcomes for everyone. Of course, I am aware that this solution raises a lot of ethical questions, as it just seems taboo to even discuss it, doesn't it? You might wonder, is it moral to allow people to sell their organs? Isn't this just another way to exploit the vulnerable? I would say that there isn't anything unethical about this, as we also sell food, water, medicines, and anything else that is essential for human life. All goods and services require labor to use and produce, and the same is true for human organs. Then there's the argument that this would exploit the poor. The idea that selling organs exploits the poor assumes that poor people are incapable of making rational decisions about their own lives. But that's simply not true. The fact is that any of these transactions would be voluntary, and if anyone felt that they were being exploited, they simply wouldn't engage in the transaction. People in financially desperate situations often make tough choices every day, and if we truly respect personal autonomy, then we trust individuals to make decisions about what happens to their bodies, just as we do with every other financial transaction. A free market allows people to weigh the risks and rewards of selling an organ. For many, the financial incentive might be life changing, enabling them to escape poverty, pay off debts, or improve their quality of life. These aren't decisions that should be made by the government or by regulators. They should be made by individuals themselves. And let's not forget, selling an organ is far safer in a regulated market than in a legal black market. In a black market, donors face unsafe surgeries, poor aftercare, and countless other legal and non legal risks. In a free market system, donors can be fully informed and compensated fairly with full medical oversight and protection. The other major concern is the idea of selling life. But think about it. Why is selling an organ different from selling any other bodily product? People sell blood, plasma, and even hair. Why not kidneys or livers? It's simply a matter of choice. At the end of the day, this is about saving lives, and the current system isn't set up very well to do that. It sacrifices the amount of lives saved in order to make itself appear more fair than it otherwise would be. Right now, the world has a large shortage of human organs, and a free market offers one of the most powerful and immediate solutions to this problem. Every day, people wait in agony on transplant lists, some for years, often watching their health deteriorate until it's too late. According to the World Health Organization, over 130,000 people worldwide die each year due to lack of access to organ transplants. And yet, we have organs available. There are people willing to donate for a price. The only thing missing is the system that allows those willing to give and those willing to pay to transact, saving lives in the process. The moral question isn't whether or not selling organs is ethical. It's whether or not we're willing to accept that people are dying because we refuse to allow them the choice to sell their organs and save others. When you're faced with the knowledge that hundreds of thousands of people more would survive if only the right system were in place, the question becomes, is it right to keep that life-saving opportunity out of reach just because it doesn't feel right? Some might argue that it's wrong to turn bodies into commodities, but I'd argue that it's wrong to let people die by restricting their choice. A free market in organs gives individuals the ability to make their own decisions about their bodies and allows others to receive treatment that they otherwise wouldn't. In this case, the moral imperative is clear: more lives saved, fewer people suffering, and more individuals empowered to make choices that affect their future and well being. Ultimately, the moral argument here isn't about money or commodification, it's about saving lives. A free market in organs gives us a real, tangible solution to one of the biggest moral crises of our time: the unnecessary loss of life due to organ shortages. So the real question is, are we willing to make the change? If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, as more than 99% of you watching this are not subscribed, and it would help me immensely in continuing to make these videos for you for free. Also, be sure to share your thoughts with me in the comments. Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm completely wrong about selling organs? Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.